Hello, race fans. Welcome back to the Big Brain Racing Podcast, where we look at all the news and views from the worlds of motorsport and sim racing. In tonight's episode, we're going to look into the FIA's plans for introducing a new F1 team. We're going to preview this coming weekend's Netherlands Grand Prix. We're also going to discuss why Max Verstappen's been a very naughty boy again, as well as his future plans for maybe entering other series of motorsport. We've also got all the rumours from silly season in the F1 summer break, and we've got much more. So let's get stuck in. Welcome back, everyone. So I think we'll start off this episode with a question that we had at the end of last week's episode from Ryan, which I'm sure will remind us what that was, because we definitely haven't forgotten.
Yeah. See if I can remember it now. It was most retirements in a title-winning season by an F1 driver.
That's right. Any ideas, Joe?
No, it's been all week, and I've not got it even like a millimetre closer to getting the answer for that.
Same. I am only really going to be guessing at this point, to be honest. I sort of actually Googling it. I've had no revelations in the last week or so. Looks like no one in the comments section managed to come up with any answers either. So, you want to put us out of our misery?
Yeah. Question on everyone's lips, or a few of us anyway. It was Niki Lauda in 1984 with six DNFs.
How many races were there that season?
Must be like
1984.
14, 16 maybe?
16 races.
Okay.
I don't know,
Yes,
I've got stuff like that in front of me just in case we needed it.
Over a third of the races.
Yeah,
that's crazy. I think you said last week that everyone else or all the other title competitors had 7 DNFs or something. So
yeah, it was crazy season.
Also, I think Max could do 6 DNFs and still easily win this year's. So
Max could do 16 DNFs and probably still win this season.
Yeah, quite possibly. I saw like a I don't know what kind of graph you would call it, like a circular graph type thing that showed, like, if your circle was complete, you had the maximum amount of points, and Max's was not far off being complete. The next nearest was like halfway around the circle.
Yeah,
just crazy.
Yeah, he's like it's over 90%, I think, like 93 or something, I think. But
crazy. Anyway, into this week's topics. Obviously, mid-season break for the F1, or as they like to call it, silly season. So we've got a few rumours and bits and pieces to discuss this week. I guess first of all was the FAA coming out and saying that they've officially launched their application process for new teams to join F1 from 2025, in which they say that the applications will be based upon, and I quote, rigorous financial and technical analysis.
Yeah, which is good. Like last time new teams entered, well, other than Haas actually, I think 2010 when 3 new teams entered, and none of them were ready, really, were they? So I think it's good that they want to do it right this time. I think they need, obviously, it is still a cost cap era, but you still need significant backing. The cost cap's 140 million or whatever. But you still need more money than that, because that doesn't include like certain driver fees, doesn't include certain factory expenses and marketing and all that kind of stuff. So you still need more money than that to go racing.
Does it include catering or not? I'm not sure on that one. I'm pretty sure Red Bull aren't too sure on that one either.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, grey area maybe. I don't know, but obviously your expenditure is still going to be over whatever the cost cap is. So they still need significant financial backing. But yeah, I fully welcome it. And like the teams that are complaining, saying, "Oh, 10 teams maximum, it'd be unsafe, or it'd be this or that," that's just their greed talking because they don't want to lose out on money. It means they have to split the initial pot of money by potentially one, maybe two more teams, and the second tier of financial rewards at the end of the season pays out down to 10th place, right? So none of them want to drop out of that 10th place. Currently, they're all in it, right?
Yeah.
But if another team comes in with a big manufacturer backing, they could drop out of that, and they obviously don't want to give up any money. So it's just pure greed. The reason the teams say it'd be unsafe or dangerous or venues aren't ready for it and stuff like that is all bull. You know, we used to have 12 teams. I think the provisions in the regs are for 13 teams, so it's absolutely doable. It's just money and them not wanting to lose it, really.
Well, the only track that really comes to mind to me where you could potentially argue it could be dangerous is Monaco, with how tight the pit lane is there. But like I say, we've had 12 teams there before, so no reason it couldn't be done again.
No.
And I mean, probably discussing the pros and cons of having Monaco on the calendar is a topic for another time. But you know, if that's the one track where it's really limiting things, like do you basically throw something out completely based on one track?
Yeah,
like it's not that's not really a sound financial decision anyway, is it? A financial or sporting decision.
Yeah. And you think about how much extra revenue this would bring in for Formula One, you know, an extra whole team's worth of marketing, right? You know, FOM and FIA, they're not going to want to turn that down. In fact, they're pushing on regardless of what the teams think is the right attitude. Absolutely.
Well, and especially like you say, if they can bring in a big name in the motorsport or in the car manufacturer world, like say someone like Chevrolet gets involved, that's going to open up a whole new market for them. Obviously, they have the 3 American races. They have the Haas team, but Haas I don't think are necessarily a super well known name outside of motorsport. Whereas if you bring in someone like Chevrolet, you've got everyone knows Chevrolet. And again, I've just picked that name out of the air, but insert any American car manufacturer name here, I guess.
Yeah.
One of the big ones is Cadillac with Andretti. They're trying to bring in, which I know, like Joe said, a lot of the teams were opposing purely down to money, but Cadillac and Andretti together in F1, that's got dollar signs written all over it. To be honest with you, for both teams, tracks, venues, the lot, everything would make money out of that.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think that'd be good. And if they've been talking about it for a long time, they know how to go racing, right? Both of them, to be fair. So like the Andretti name and their expertise with Cadillac brand backing, come on, that's gonna be a good type. And if they could make that like a proper American team, because Haas is American in name only, basically. They're based in Banbury, and the chassis are built and put together in Italy, and then they're not American as such, are they? Other than the name and the owner. So, but yeah, having a proper American-based team, American brand, like that would be awesome for Formula One. I mean, but for me, it doesn't have to be American. Anyone that can bring good competition would be brilliant. And like manufacturer backing would be great. They could do it like the sort of Haas way, where you buy as much as you can, but you're never going to get to the sharp end of that race. So I'd like to see someone start out and develop a car and work their way up. But obviously that does take more like financial input to start with, continued financial input, to be fair, and a lot of knowledge and expertise. But no, I'd love to see it. Like anything that makes the grid bigger and more competitive is good.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, this also comes alongside Audi agreeing to join F1 as a works team with Sauber. I've actually seen a few things about this, and the more I think about it, I think the top teams should kind of be worried about Audi joining F1, because you look at historically any motorsport series that Audi have joined, they've pretty much dominated, and they've got to the front. And especially like you look at Audi now, they're not in really any other top end motorsport. They obviously ended their association in the top of GT racing, ended that program. They've left Formula E. They've literally put all of their focus into, or they're going to be putting all of their focus into Formula One. I think from 2026, I think it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
So like I think the top F1 teams should be kind of worried about that.
Yeah, like they don't enter just because why not? They enter because they want to win. They're a successful brand. You look how successful they've been at Le Mans and stuff, and they're going to want to replicate that. So yeah, no, they're good, and they were pretty serious talks with them tying up with Red Bull at one point, wasn't it? But they pulled out, I think, didn't they? Was it?
Yeah, I think it's Sauber now.
More important, I think, didn't they? And I think that just shows how committed they are to this, and yeah, that's a brilliant brand to have on the grid, definitely.
Well, even down to their GT3 program, they're still selling customer cars, but they're not running a works team now in any GT3. Like their focus is solely going to be on F1, and they've got, I think, because they're not just rushing into it, they've got a few years now where they can really assess like all the other designs. Let's be honest, they'll look at Red Bull, see what works best at the minute, and then I'm sure they'll have their own twist on it. And I honestly wouldn't be surprised if when they do enter into the sport in 2026, obviously new regulations by then as well. I wouldn't be surprised if they aren't already somewhere towards the front.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. And I think because at the minute they haven't been accepted, there's no contracts for it. They're not bound by the testing design and CFD regulations that other teams are now. Obviously, it's still early days, and I don't know how committed they would be at this point. But yeah, I think they could really sort of steal the march and get moving quite far up the grid straight away, I think.
Obviously, sticking with F1, obviously this weekend the summer break ends and we get back to racing with the Netherlands Grand Prix at Zandvoort. I think I'll probably speak for all three of us when I think we don't really expect anything different other than Max Verstappen win.
Yeah, definitely. That'd be his 9th, I think, wouldn't it? Equaling the record if he wins it. And there's nothing in the form books to suggest that won't happen, right? I think we've said before the only thing that could stop him is reliability, and they don't look like they've got any issues in that respect. So yeah, I think other teams could be competitive. I think last year Merc and Ferrari weren't too bad; they're fairly competitive, and I'd kind of expect Merc to be this year as well. But again, not to challenge Red Bull, I don't think. Upgraded McLaren again. Pretty looking forward to that one here. And it's the sort of track that would have, in theory, suited the Aston Martin of the first half of the season, but have they obviously gone the wrong way of upgrades and having to put things on or take things off the car? So not really sure where they'll factor into it. But yeah, no one's going to get close to Red Bull, I don't think, unless weather comes into it. And the forecast is a bit iffy at the minute. But
yeah, that's true. Yeah. I mean, I kind of think obviously I agree with you there. The Red Bulls are kind of, or especially Max, maybe not so much Sergio, depending on how good of a weekend he has, whether he gets caught up in anything in qualifying or whatever. But I actually think the way that the McLarens have been at the high downforce circuits recently, I think the McLarens could be kind of best of the rest. But it's a really interesting dynamic and a really interesting battle that's formed now between McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari. Aston Martin have maybe dropped back a little bit, but they can maybe get involved at the odd race here and there. But I think it makes for a quite interesting second half of the season if you just ignore the Red Bulls up front.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Red Bull got their own championship and will run the rest.
Yeah. So a little bit of a preview there. Not really too much interesting to talk about it until the action gets underway this weekend. But I'm sure we'll be reviewing that after the race in the next week or so.
It'd be interesting to see if anyone does bring anything for it, because it's probably the last real opportunity to bring an update for your car before everyone switches complete focus to next year. But because a high downforce package here is going to suit in places like Singapore and Suzuka and stuff like that. Obviously, Monza will have a specific wing for that, but that's not really an update as such. That's just circuit specific. So it'd be interesting to see if anyone does bring anything for the remainder of the year, but it's probably going to be the last real big chance if anyone does sort of do that, or whether they've moved entire focus off already.
Yeah. And again, I don't know how true this is, but I saw a rumor that next year AlphaTauri were just going to run this year's Red Bull. But I don't know how true that is, and I don't know how legal that is in the regulations either, to be honest. But
We did that with Racing Point, didn't we, a few years ago?
yeah, yeah, exactly. So, but it's quite an interesting concept, because I think with the way that the regulations are pretty stable again going into next year, this year's Red Bull will probably still be quite competitive in next year's field, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. Just, yeah. It'd be interesting to see, because obviously the engineers at Red Bull, they know what to expect from that car and why it's built a certain way, whereas with that knowledge, or can that knowledge legally pass down to AlphaTauri? Don't know, but I think you could take a pretty good, any kind of race car engineer, and take that Red Bull and set it up fairly well, to be honest. It's just got that much outright pace.
So sticking with Red Bull, I did see as well the Dutch media outlet De Telegraaf apparently revealed that there's a clause in Perez's contract that would permit the team to modify his salary if he was to fall 125 points behind his teammate, which is interesting, because going into the summer break, he was exactly 125 points behind Max Verstappen. And I think his salary is rumored to be around about $8 million. But see, if this clause is a legit thing and is something that Red Bull are gonna institute, it's quite an interesting dynamic, because I think it's one of them things. If they do kind of activate the clause, it very much signals that they're ready to move on from him at the end of the season. I don't think you activate the clause if you think he is the second driver in that team for the long term.
No, if you do think he's your long term guy, you don't piss him off, do you? Right? But do you think he was even aware of that clause? Do you know, if he was, I'm not going to fall behind 125 points behind him by the summer break, am I? Now look at, I think it says, and we've covered it before, how good Max is and how badly he's doing in the best car, to be honest. It's sort of a combination of both. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's true. No, we won't. And I don't know if they did activate it, if it would ever become public. But wow, what a clause to have, eh?
Yeah.
Do you imagine an F1 driver driving on minimum wage?
Yeah.
I mean, I would.
Yeah.
I'd be giving them money.
Yeah. I wouldn't go that far, but
I would.
Yeah, one car Max Verstappen isn't too pleased about driving at the minute is his Aston Martin Valkyrie. He might be getting a nice speeding fine from that, with his video of him driving, I think, over 90 km/h speed limit in the Nice Nord motorway.
Yeah, there's a video out at the moment floating around with that, and there's also quite a few pictures going around with him dressed up in a prisoner's uniform and ready to be taken away on the Dutch GP weekend. So, but
can you imagine it? An arrest warrant out for him on his over
the Yeah, the police come out the pits and try and chase him around the track.
Wow.
But I mean, he's not the first F1 driver to do that. Let's face it. Over the years, I mean, Lewis Hamilton had one in particular back in 2009 in Australia. Had to apologise for that. Schumacher had it back in the day. I believe he got a punishment where he had to work with Fiat for a little while, adverts and dangerous driving policies and all that. So it's nothing unusual. He's just having fun.
Yeah. I can't sit here and say I wouldn't do the exact same thing if I had that car, but
see, if I was him, I'd be more pissed with his mate who's posted the video all over the place online.
It's, in this day and age, you can't get away with anything, can you? Why would you allow him to put that online? That's the stupid bit. I I mean, I bet the FIA aren't that impressed either with their Action for Road Safety campaign, which world champion, double world champion, he's got to be like the poster boy for any campaign they do, right? And now he's gone and done that, so it doesn't look good for them. But yeah, I'd love to have a go in one of those cars, to be honest. So.
Yeah, and anyone got a spare couple of million euros to buy us one? Yeah, not the cheapest of car.
No.
But stick it, I guess. A lot of news around Red Bull and Verstappen, I guess. So next up, obviously there was some news about Max Verstappen wanting to start his own GT3 team as well. So looking to potentially compete in the GT World Challenge from 2025 onwards. Obviously comes from his team Redline in sim racing, but yeah, looking to move into GT racing for real, do endurance races, DTM, all of the above has been kind of hinted at and looked at. So quite an interesting concept, a racing driver kind of branching out and starting his own team in other series.
Yeah, especially for an active driver. You've seen it before with Prost and Stewart, right, in Formula One, but for an active driver to do it. But I think it just shows how much he loves motorsport and how much he loves sim racing and just racing in general, right? Because it was always on iRacing, racing GT cars, isn't he? He's got a couple drivers in DTM from his sim racing team. I think they now actual real life racing, which is brilliant to see. So this is an obvious next step for that, right? Set up your own team, get your sim racing team or some of them in that, bring drivers through, and GT3 is the obvious choice because you can enter so many things with that. They're like relatively cost effective. It's like a pretty equal playing field. Like I said, you can sort of take it into any different series just with a few little tweaks. So yeah, it's the obvious.
They have BOP as well, which means that no matter what car you're driving, you should be able to be somewhat competitive.
Yeah.
Well, this will enable Verstappen to drive at Le Mans as well because the GT3 rules come in place next year, which he's always said he wanted to do. I think especially with his dad, so that works brilliantly with the GT3 teams and with Ford obviously going to be an engine partner with Red Bull. Verstappen in a Mustang, quite a possibility.
That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, I think it just helps to, because Max Verstappen's a household name nowadays. Everyone knows who he is, even people that don't really follow motorsport or Formula One in general. So if he can use that celebrity and bring that to other series, then that's always beneficial. You know, GT racing is generally a very good standard and it's very competitive. So be interesting to see. Obviously in F1, he's winning races because he's a good driver, but I think equally he's got the best car on the grid. Goes into GT racing and it's all kind of equalized with the BOP. Be interesting to see how competitive he'd be in a series like that.
It's a very different type of driving. It really would be interesting because he obviously likes a car that's very on the nose and doesn't mind the rear stepping out, and he'll just manage it and stuff like that. It's going to have a very different feel in a heavy, like lazy GT car. I mean, some of them feel fantastic, right? But compared to his Formula car, they're going to be, it's a completely different world. So it'd be interesting to see how he gets on with that. But yeah, it'd be good. Like you were saying, seeing him at Le Mans and stuff. I'd love to see him in a prototype. They're going for the outright win. But maybe maybe that's what he will do 10 years down the line. He's got time on his side, like he's young still. So yeah.
See him go for the Triple Crown.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got the time, he's got the money, he's got the sponsorship opportunities. Like who's to say that couldn't happen? Like starts off with a GT3 team and it evolves into LMP2 or even into the LMDHs or whatever the top category is by that point. You know, because who's not going to want to give him sponsorship at that point?
Yeah. Love people tripping up to something. Even probably the likes of Ferrari and stuff like that, you know, they'd absolutely love that for sure. So yeah. Don't know if I picture him in red though, to be honest. Maybe if he left Formula One, I don't know. But
well, that's the thing. After F1, there's no no real allegiance to stick with the Red Bull brand, is there? It's kind of anything goes, and who knows as well. Like starting his own GT3 team is not necessarily doesn't necessarily have to be any brand in particular. Obviously, I guess Red Bull wouldn't like it to be a Mercedes or a Ferrari, but outside of that, I don't really see any other conflicts. Like it could be any other racing brand, really.
Pretty much. Unless, Audi customer cars are still kicking around back then. But yeah, he's still got a pretty wide scope to choose from, I think.
So I guess one of the other rumours we've seen in the last week or so, Binotto potentially going to Alpine.
Yeah, that was a very heavy rumour around the Spa weekends just before the season, the summer break. But it seems to have. It's not so much fizzled out; it's quietened down. It seems like it's more likely going to be happening. I mean, there's not really anyone else out there I'd say would be good for the role. The pressure that Ferrari put any team principal under, I'm sure Alpine would be half of that pressure, so he could deal with it very well. But then there's always questions with the team of whether they're, as Otmar Zafner come out with, is the plan going to work? And it's mixed reactions at the moment with that. But he might be the right guy to do that. But stay tuned, because I reckon that will be happening soon.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? Like with the turnover of top level employees that they've had at Alpine. Like, look, I know money talks, but is that a job that you would really want? Like, it's got to be like you've got to really think that you've got to really believe in what the team are doing, and I'm not convinced that even anyone in the team really is convinced with what the team's doing right now. I know you're there wearing your Alpine jersey, but I don't think you're convinced that they're moving in the right direction. I don't think anyone really is at the minute. Like I say, maybe Binotto thinks that he can be that person to kind of turn things around.
Faith in the Renault board and higher ups as well, though, because they quite famously kind of, if they get bored of F1 or the results aren't there, they will just leave, right? And obviously they haven't left now, they've rebranded to Alpine, and I guess there's a bit of a marketing spin on that, but are they just going to walk in if this 5-year 100 race whatever plan doesn't materialize, or faster as potentially they may want now? So you've got to have a good working relationship there, I think. Otherwise you'd be constantly looking over your shoulder, right? And that's not the way to run a team.
To be honest with you, Alpine would be, well, the Renault board would be very silly to pull out, because the Alpine brand itself, and I know this from working with them, they've thrown £1 billion into the brand in all forms of what they're doing. So for them to pull out a Formula One would be a waste of money, really, in their eyes. They need to make it work. And so maybe there is a lot of pressure to claim that money back and get the team, the drivers working together as well. It's still a relatively young pair in the drivers. I wouldn't exactly say there's a lead driver in that team to help push the team forward. Maybe it's something they can look at in the future with that. But they've won championships before. What's stopping them from winning it again, really? They've got the pedigree, they've got the team, they've got the money. They need to push on.
Yeah.
Here's a thought from me. How about Alpine pulling out of F1, starting an LMDH program with Max Verstappen as driver?
Well, two of the bits. One bit's there already. The LMDH program's there next year. Yeah. So that's Verstappen in the car with Ocon as a teammate.
Yeah. So jumping over to NASCAR now then. Story that came up this week. Noah Gragson being suspended indefinitely.
Yes, yeah, he's a bit of a he's a victim. I'll say a victim in some ways, not really a victim at all. He's obviously, his historical posts have been seen. He's liked something that he shouldn't have liked, which I'm not going to say, but I think we all know what it is. So And yeah, NASCAR and the team haven't liked that. But he's already started the program to return. He's admitted fault. He's gone on the wellness program to reinstate himself. He's asked to leave the team as well, come out the contract. So he realises he's made a mistake. But again, it's not the first time we've seen drivers doing this. And again, probably beats back to the Verstappen and the social media element. You can't hide anymore from what you do. You can get in trouble very easily by just clicking the wrong thing or posting the wrong video. And this time around, it is another NASCAR driver. But yeah, he's not the first NASCAR driver to do it. I mean, look at Kyle Larson a couple of years back. But he's come back and he's won a championship, so it's all forgotten about. Hopefully, he can do the same.
Then jumping over to iRacing, there's been a bit of a not an announcement, I guess a bit of a tease, really. That the IMSA GTP class growing on the platform. Obviously, the Cadillac being recently added. Presumably, a couple more cars getting added to that category.
Yeah, I've got to be honest with you. I've got to thank Max for the source on this. IMSA are now their pinnacle series on iRacing. So the licensing for the cars. So it looks pretty certain Porsche and Acura are going to be coming to that in the DH form. And they're changing a few of the series around as well to accommodate IMSA a lot more. So firstly, great to see. It's nice to see a bit of variety on there, especially over the last few years with iRacing. You only really ever had a choice of 2 prototype cars to race. And if you didn't like either of them, then you had no chance. And to obviously put a lot more time and effort into an official series, which IMSA in return like to see that with iRacing. It's only growing further. It can be great for racing in general.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see as well, and it's quite interesting. Obviously, this last weekend, you and I just did 24 hours of Le Mans in the Cadillac LMDH. Be interesting to see how the kind of BOP works over a season with all the cars, because I think the Cadillac seemed quite a bit better at Le Mans, especially than the BMW. Now, whether that's because it's a newer car and they obviously want to sell the new car, not quite sure, but be interesting to see how they BOP all the cars over a season and whether you can be competitive in all of them.
Yeah, it's going to take probably a year to get it right. Realistically, like you say, BOP is a very hard thing. We see it in ACC as well. Any new car comes out, it seems to be the dominant car for a period of time. So, but iRacing have done it before. They'll do it again. They'll get it right. They'll get some good races in, good series in. Obviously, with GT3s going into the IMSA series as well, it's going to create a lot more popularity, a lot more racing in general in that series.
And also sticking with the sim racing, Motorsport Games this week reported their earnings for the second quarter and their 6 monthly figures to the end of June 2023, and it doesn't make for good reading for Motorsport Games. So for the second quarter this year, net sales were down by about $250,000 compared to last year. And their net loss was up by about just over $500,000. So net loss of $8.17 million, which obviously we know it's a lot of money. Yeah. Obviously, Motorsport Games being a publicly listed company on the Nasdaq, all these results are all these financial results are public knowledge.
They're obliged to publish them, aren't they? I did read somewhere, I think, that the losses were, I don't know what the right way to put it is, but not as bad as they predicted or expected. I mean, they're still pretty bad though. And I've also read, I think they don't have enough cash flow to get to the end of the year as it currently stands. They need more investors. Or
I think so. I saw somewhere because they currently own the rights to the NASCAR franchise, don't they? I saw somewhere that they were trying to sell off those rights to another
It's
publisher.
it's been they've cut the ties now. It's happened literally in the last 24 hours. Yeah, it's happened. So NASCAR free to explore.
NASCAR have actually just pulled the plug, so they're not even allowing Motorsport Games to try and sell it on to someone else. That's interesting, and that obviously then puts Motorsport Games in an even worse position. And I think it's something that's been coming, because obviously net losses of $8.17 million. Last year they had net losses of $7.4 million as well. So it's not like they've been doing well and then all of a sudden they've had a bad year. Like it's a downward trend. Like
they haven't produced anything, or at least anything good. A couple very mediocre NASCAR games. They're in the rights to IndyCar, and a game was announced but hasn't materialized. BTCC, a game never materialized, but they did put a DLC in R Factor 2, I think. That's a bit of a cop out. So they've just basically tried to own the market, right? They've gone out, bought a load of licenses, bought a studio in Studio 397 or whatever it is. And they're like, right, we're going to own all this stuff, and we're going to, we'll spend a load of money, but we'll make it back, right? But they haven't made anything worth buying at all yet, and obviously previously announced games haven't come out, so they're not making anything. I did read that they think that Le Mans Ultimate will still come out, and that literally everything's going to be diverted into that. So I heard, just to make sure that it is out. And that's kind of like the only option for them, because they need to sell something, right? They need to bring some money in. They're outgoing.
I get that, but if they if they rush it out and it doesn't do well, I think that is then pretty much the end. So you're kind of you're in a no-win situation, because you rush it out and it doesn't do well, you're going to go under. If you take too long to try and get it right and then release it, you go under because you don't have the cash flow.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you mentioned R Factor 2 there and the DLC they brought out on it. Actually, pretty good. I did play a little bit of the touring cars on R Factor 2 when they came out. But interestingly enough, I was actually looking earlier today at there's a website you can see current players on Steam games.
Yeah.
And I actually looked at R Factor 2 today. I'm going to hazard a guess of how many current players are playing R Factor 2 on Steam. So this will be like the last.
Just at that one specific point you were looking.
This will be for the last 28 days. How many people have played it?
Ooh.
I'd go about 800. Maybe 500. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be much at all.
340 odd, I think it was.
Yeah.
Which, when you compare that to ACC was at around about 2,000. The original Assetto Corsa, 8,000.
Yeah.
That was the highest kind of sim title.
Yeah. I think ACC peaks at about 4,000 and a bit a month. And it's been going up over time. And it peaks and troughs, as DLC comes out and dips in the summer and comes back up in the winter and stuff like that. But at least there's a fairly loyal fan base there. But if you've got 300 people racing on your sim and you sell a DLC for 20 quid, that brings you in $6,000 or something.
Even if everyone buys it, that's all you get from it, isn't it?
Yeah. So
but you want to have a guess at what the so we're not just talking racing necessarily, but the top driving sim was on again just on the Steam platform, so PC.
F1, it's got to be.
No. Lawn mowing simulator?
No, Euro Truck Simulator.
Yeah.
I was.
I think there are about somewhere around 30,000 people playing that. In the last
to be fair, I totally understand why. I've got it myself. I love it.
Yeah,
it's absolutely brilliant.
That's more than iRacing, right? Because most people obviously won't get that through Steam, but I think that peaks at 10,000, is it normally, on a weekday or something like that?
Not sure, to be honest. Again, I didn't look at iRacing on there purely because I know majority of people don't actually do it through Steam, do they?
Exactly. Yeah.
I know iRacing used to give you figures when you first logged in, but I don't remember seeing them recently.
It used to be at the top, didn't it?
My iRacing, even though I don't use Steam, the UI is somehow linked to my Steam, so it shows I've played a certain amount of hours on there, even though I don't use it through Steam. So it might register still.
I know mine definitely doesn't. But
Yeah.
You might have done something with it back in the past that's linked to it.
I've got to
maybe.
admit, I did create another account by mistake and not realising what I did. But I got to admit, who doesn't like driving a truck through Europe? Let's face it.
Well, I guess it's just an easy game to play, isn't it? Like it's nothing too serious. You're just kind of cruising down the motorway and you deliver
So you try and park it.
you try and park it, and then it's the most stressful game known to man. Unless either of you two have got anything else you want to bring up, I think that pretty much covers all the topics we were going to talk about this week.
I'll see. We need to hand over to Ryan for his fact of the week or no question of the week.
Unless I actually have one, if you want one from me this week.
Go on.
Go on then.
So, which tyre manufacturer has won the most Formula One World Championships?
Goodyear.
Correct. 24 titles they've won.
Do you know why I sort of hazard a guess at that? It's because I had a poster from Goodyear back in the day when I was a kid, when they won their 300th Grand Prix. So it's
Nice.
sort of, yeah.
Yeah, last one they won was 1997, but yeah, they've won it 24 times.
Wow.
Second behind them,
Pirelli?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're because obviously back in the 50s, 60s they were massive, and obviously they've had everything since 2011.
Yeah.
So that's another 13 years. So yeah. There's some obscure ones up there. Like, isn't Avon quite high? I think.
I don't see Avon on there. There is. You've got Bridgestone in third, Dunlop fourth, Mitchell in fifth. Then you've got Firestone in sixth, and then joint seventh. You've got Continental and Engelbert.
Maybe it's one of those.
Engelbert.
Yeah.
1956 and 1958. Apparently, they won it.
What's a name for a tyre?
It's a great name, isn't it? I wonder if they're still even going.
Can we put some Engelberts on, please?
No,
Don't get me started with tyres.
I don't think they're even going still. They apparently a Belgian rubber products company founded by Oscar Engelbert in 1868. So yeah, they looks like they had some let's just call it some financial irregularities and some other shady stuff that was going on in the 60s that I think spelled an end for that company.
I do have a question, a statistic, if anyone wants to.
Yeah, go for it. Seems you got
this,
very quickly. Yeah.
All right, okay. I'll only do the one. It's going to be a tough one, though. I don't expect you to get this. Wouldn't have had a clue with this. Most free practice appearances without a race start.
Oh, that's a fantastic question.
It is, but
what's the number? Have you got the number?
Yeah, 19.
Wow. Okay.
So you can maybe imagine what type of era this was in.
I don't know where to start with this one.
I'll give you another. Shall I give you another one? Because it is a very tough one. Mid 2000s, when they used to run their third driver in practice sessions. It's that era.
I thought it must be, because it's not a really old school thing, Friday drivers.
No.
Most.
The
last clue I have will probably give it away.
I'm drawing a complete blank, to be honest.
Yeah, I've clear on that.
I never really used to watch practice at all back then.
Okay, I'll give you the last clue. He's most famous, this driver, for losing a Formula 3000 race at the start-finish line. No?
No, I've got nothing.
Do you want to know? Shall I reveal?
Might as well put it in the comments and reveal it next week.
See if anyone,
okay.
without Googling, can come up with an answer.
The last clue should give it away if anyone who's a bit of a historic, well, maybe watches the lower Formula back in the day. As soon as I've said that, someone will know what I'm talking about. Hopefully.
I remember seeing something about it, but I couldn't tell you who the driver was.
Okay.
It was at Monaco, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, I remember seeing the clip, but I couldn't tell you who the driver was.
I remember watching it live as a kid. It was funny. But yeah, we'll come to that one another day.
Yeah. All right, well, that kind of wraps things up for this episode. So thanks a lot for watching or listening, whatever platform you're on, and we will catch you in the next one.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you.
See you later.